Hello and welcome to All Stats, Aren't We? Podcast in which Leeds fans cast their combined eye over goings on at Ellen Road, giving scrutiny to the tactical footings at work at Leeds United. I'm Adam Elliott, the Luca and Iron man of the match, the podcast. Fair play to him. That headlock on Pascal Strite was something straight out of WWE. And I'm joined today by the Ethan Ampadu handball of the podcast, It's Martin Riley. Even the best of us can make the wrong choice. So that's everyone. It's just me and Martin as always. Oh, wait, no. A wild Will Clay has appeared too. I guess he's the Daniel Farker sub-timings of this podcast. Welcome, Will. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. My football team aren't pleasing me in my life, but you know, I'm doing good besides that. How are you both?
Mine?
Can't complain, yeah. Other than Leeds being Leeds on that game, but yeah, I'm good. I've had my favourite tea, which is a homemade lasagna. Just literally the best thing that I make, and I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, I'm good.
I myself had a homemade curry, one of the best things I'm good at making, and I would say it wasn't as good as normal, but it was still really good. Will, have you eaten?
Half. I didn't get home from work long ago, so I've had sort of half of some noodles, and I'll have a sort of second tea later. But you know, it's okay.
Tea, wow.
Yeah.
Right,
Correct
first
calling
tea,
it
but what
tea.
about second tea?
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
like a hobbit.
indeed. Yeah. Right, we're going to get straight into this. Obviously, as you'll have all seen by the title and the timing of this podcast, it's about Sunderland, but we're going to actually talk about Norwich first, because that's this weekend and it's the only chance we're going to have to talk about it. First of all, Daniel Farker is going to be serving his one-match ban for this game. It looked like he could have pushed back on this further if he wanted to, but then risk having his ban extended further, and I guess the idea is it's the FA Cup game is probably our least important game left of any game. Not that the cup's not important, guys, but it's not that important compared to what we now need to do in the league, especially after what just happened against Sunderland. Had we beat Sunderland, maybe my mind would have changed a bit on that. But as it is, Norwich this Sunday, the day before my birthday, so that's going to go well. Also, I guess the question to both of you, I'll start with you, Will. What changes are you wanting to see and what changes are you expecting to see for this game? Because obviously he's not going to play the exact same side for the game in midweek against Norwich at Ellen Road.
I assume Lucas Perry comes in just to continue. He played against Birmingham, right, and was pretty good.
Penalty save.
Insane fingertip save, penalty save. It'd be nice if we had a keeper that could save penalties, to be fair.
We've got a guy called Ilan Melier in our under 21s.
Get him in the under 21s, man. 2 minutes after, though, we don't talk about that bit. Do you both see that Paul put in the Discord?
I've only seen it.
Okay, good. Leave it at that because it's classic him, unfortunately. Anyway, sorry. Perry comes in, I would like to think. Maybe Byram, just to give one of our overplayed fullbacks a rest. Bornau the same. Tanaka. I really want to see Buonanotte because he can't keep doing this, oh, well, he isn't fit gimmick. That's why I won't play him. And then this is a key moment to clearly give him some game time. So I'd really, really like that. Besides that, it's just players that I'd hope will impact the run-in that I'm less confident Fark will actually trust. So Nonto, Longstaff. I feel like I've said 7 players there. But make some changes. Right. Get some people game time because he never does at any other opportunity. I'd be really sad if it wasn't a pretty heavily rotated team. Even though we've just lost, I still want to see changes, personally.
I'd agree with that, Martin. Also, I know it's the quarterfinals at stake here, and so it gets a bit more serious as a competition, but are you in agreement with Will that we actually do need to see quite a few changes for this one?
Yeah, I couldn't really add anything to what Will said there about the players I'd like to see, or rather the players that I wouldn't like to see play in this one, which for me would be Ampadu, Rodon.
Is this because they're rubbish, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
They're all rubbish.
Yeah. Because you hate them, I think. That's what you said.
Yeah. Despise them. Anton Stark, the fullbacks. Obviously, all these players aren't going to get a rest, but as many of them as we can would be nice.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to add something on top of what you were talking about before, who we want to see a bit about Daniel Farker's touchline ban. Can we not appeal it and get more touchline ban?
For listeners, he's joking.
Yes, I am. I am clearly. I am
People
clearly
might not
joking.
actually pick up on that.
Yes, that was a joke. I don't want to see that. But
yes, cool.
Yes.
I won't add much to what you both said about the actual team. I think we're all in agreement there. So what I will say is a bit on Norwich for anyone that doesn't know, because it's kind of my area of slight expertise. They've now got Philippe Clement in charge, who's the former Rangers manager, has done some pretty good work in Belgium as well. And he has come in at Norwich and won 11 of his first 20 games. Massively turned around. They were in the relegation zone. They're a much better team at the moment. They have a lot of injuries, a lot of them in attack as well, so they will be without a few key players. But the thing that scares me a bit about them is, A, their form's good, their confidence is good, the performances are way better, and B, he's actually a pretty good manager when it comes to like transitional attacks, and so I can see this being a bit of a championship fixture for us, a bit like the midweek one was, as we previewed and predicted, Martin, on the last pod, where there's a lot of the ball for Leeds and the opposition are able to play into space, and they do have players that can hurt us, even though they're a championship team in mid-table, but they're putting up like top 6 level form at the moment, probably more than that, to be fair. So don't underestimate them. But at the same time, I do think Leeds at home, even with a lot of changes, should be able to find a way to win this match. I don't see any reason why not. And I would love to in the Cup quarterfinals. And then who knows? You're only one game away from Wembley, so who knows? Is that everything on Norwich? Good. Right. Before we get into it, just a reminder, where can this find our Patreon, Will?
ASAW / I can't remember the link, I'll be honest.
I like doing this because it keeps people on their toes. Getting you ready for this podcast.
Someone help me.
Well, it's in the running order. Patreon.com /ASAW Patreon.
Indeed, and you'll find some bonus stuff this week because even though it's my birthday, I'm planning to write some stuff on signings and how that's all been, because I feel like that's actually come up again recently about what we did or didn't do in January and the summer because we lost one game to Sunderland.
Should have signed some attackers, man.
That's why we didn't bloody win. If you are listening to this or watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment. Tell Will how fantastic he looks. Tell Martin how good his shirt looks in particular today, which I did see, but I can't see now. But I saw it when you changed earlier. Yeah, there you go. Brilliant. And then just tell me that I've got a nice pair of new glasses or something, which I'm not really wearing, but there you go. That'd be nice. And we'll get into Sunderland now, shall we? So, stats of note then. This paints a picture, doesn't it? Yeah, Leeds, 1.15 expected goals and 18 shots. That sounds really dominant, that does. And Sunderland, 3 shots, 0.86 expected goals. So we lost, right. Oh, no big chances, this says Martin. The shots work out at 0.06 per shot, which has to be one of the lowest of the season for us. And Sunderland, it's fair to say, are pretty good at doing that, making shots low value, and that's what they've been good at all season. But anyway, we'll get into this properly then. First of all, some people are going to want us to talk about the referee, but I'm not going to do that yet. We'll talk about that later on. Don't like to focus on it because it feels a bit of an excuse to rely on the officials to beat a depleted Sunderland team. Let's remind ourselves that they had numerous key players out. Their best player was on the bench. Like, they were not anywhere near full strength. They looked much more like their championship team with like 2 Premier League players, 3 Premier League players, to be frank. And we didn't manage to win. So we'll start as we should with the first half, Martin. Sunderland had 0.01 expected goals in that half. I don't even know if you remember the chance, but it's actually Dan Ballard heading the ball down into an area. I didn't even think it was a shot, to be honest. I think he was just trying to find someone. So a bit generous to give them that one. But how much credit should we take for being kind of dominant in that sense? Or was it just Sunderland being pretty bad or just not attacking as part of their game plan? How did you see it?
So, yeah, I think it's probably more from column B. I don't think we did anything especially different or interesting. It's just that Sunderland weren't really attacking, especially in the first half. The few moments that they did attack, we did snuff it out well, but it was pretty few and far between. And it was clear from their setup when they come into it, matching us up. And without the amount of players they had out, I think they will have struggled to create too much, but creating that little is quite good on our part. So we do have to give ourselves some credit, but I think it's probably more on Sunderland. being bad or just not wanting to attack at that point in the game. But yeah, but in regards to what we did in that half, we also didn't really do a whole lot going forward. So we cannot pat ourselves on the back for that one. And that is probably where we should give Sunderland a bit more credit, in that they did defend their box very well throughout the game, not just in the first half. And we could not cope with that and had no answers to the questions Regis Libri posed us.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about a second point more now, if that's okay. Ethan, a good friend of the pod, said on Twitter, I feel like there's a lot of chat about the Leeds game and being on the wrong things. Yes, the time wasting from Sunderland is annoying, and we should have also had a penalty. But the real issue is that in a game we were favourites to win, we didn't create a single big chance. As I said at the top of the pod, 0 created for us, which is probably the first time in a while that that's happened. So surely, even though we managed to kind of keep Sunderland at bay, the bigger focus here is actually us and what we did not do in an attacking sense.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree, because I think as much as you kind of mentioned, we'll get onto the referee in one particular moment. You can't, as a football team, cry about the referee should have done this if in a home game against a team who are a similar level to you, as you said, like it's not even against Man City, right? It's like, oh, if Calvert-Lewin scored early, oh, if Aronson took his one-on-one. We didn't have a single moment where it's like, oh, a player should have scored there. Which at some point you've got to look at yourselves and go, come on, we should have done better. And Sunderland and the way they approached the game, I'll be honest, if we had, half the first team out and we're away, I'd want us to do the same thing, ruin the game of football. Yeah. I mean, a few games this season, it's felt like Farke has gone away from home and gone, I'll take a 0-0. That's what they did the other day. So, it's not pretty, but you got to do what you got to do, right? And because of how ineffective we were, we left them in a situation where they could get one moment and benefit, which is the really frustrating bit, is there couldn't have been a nicer time to play them, and it just felt like we failed to take advantage of that completely.
Yeah, massive opportunity missed when you think that our best attacking moment, at least in the first half especially, was the Anton Stack free kick shot that he had. Also, just to note, we've not scored an open play goal now since technically Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, but I'm not really going to count that because of the fact that how that came about for Okafor wasn't really a moment of genius from us. It was a good moment from Jaden Bogle, and that was about it. So that's actually the last game we actually created anything from open play properly of note and took it was Forest. So our finishing has definitely been letting us down, but also our chance creation has been letting us down. So yeah, going into the second then, I'm going to throw out a slightly hot take here, Will, which is that I was kind of all right with the setup being the way it was, the game being 0-0, them only having had one shot worth 0.01 expected goals. Like, I wasn't too bothered that we hadn't actually managed to do anything ourselves at that point because we had another 45 minutes to fix it. And so for me, it was, what are you doing at half time? What are you doing in the first 10 minutes of that half? And we were all calling for those subs in our group chat, in the Discord, wherever we were. And that didn't happen. And actually, the first team in the end to make a sub was Sunderland in the 55th minute when they brought Granit Xhaka on and Wilson Isidore on. So that's a bit of a problem for me. And then we saw a sub from Farke in the 62nd minute when he brought on Lucas Mecha. And I know we've done subs to death and all that, but hasn't been great that we've not managed to make more subs earlier. Hasn't been great that we've not been able to take the game by the scruff of the neck when it's not going our way, don't you think?
Yeah, it's frustrating that as much as I'd still disagree, I could understand starting in the way that we have in quite a few games for the first half, as you say. And then at half time, I think it was obvious to basically everyone watching, Sunderland were doing nothing. You've got to try and attack a little bit. And we still had, Calvert-Lewin as an attacker, and then Aronson sort of. But we were playing in front of them. They weren't interested in playing football. They're gonna sit back. You've at that stage in the game, the kind of routine for what's going to happen for the second half if we stay the same was very, very clear. You've got to bring on a Nonto, a Tanaka, a Buenanotte. Oh wait, he's not even in the squad. Somebody to sort of change the picture, because it was so clear that the current way it was going to be Sunderland wanted a 0-0, and for whatever reason we were given the setup we had most likely to end in 0-0, and that's the way it would have been if it wasn't for one moment, right? Because even after we were chasing the game, we didn't do much to force the issue, which is just it's ironic with Fark that I think we've, I don't want to group everyone. I've kind of arrived at a point where, like, I don't expect him to do anything proactive. But it's still annoying when he doesn't. I'm kind of kidding myself that he might change, but I know he won't, if that makes sense. It's tricky.
Yeah, the time he has mostly done it has been after like a couple of poor results or performances, and then he has in his Leeds career occasionally changed stuff. So maybe then people are hoping for that. And I'm not on about the Norwich game, I'm on about the next league game. Maybe someone performs well against Norwich and they might be in. Let's see. We'll talk about players on later on and how well some of them did. Martin, obviously, like we said, we've done subs to death, but it does feel like this is something we should talk about again, this particular part of the game. You said it before the match, actually, yourself. You were like, he's not going to change this team because in his mind, these weren't your exact words, but basically he's found a winning formula, or should we call it the best formula rather than a winning formula for getting points. But that wasn't the case here. So what's your view of this bit?
So, yeah, with regards to the subs, we definitely should be making subs earlier than what we did. And the other thing which Daniel Farke said in his post-match presser was that he wanted to keep a clean sheet. Like, okay, fair enough. We haven't kept many clean sheets. I can understand the desire to do that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when you come out of that first half, seeing how little Sunderland were attacking, and when they did attack, how easily we generally did shut them down, you probably think, I'd probably be okay to throw in a couple of attackers here. It might leave us a little bit exposed, but we should be able to manage it. And put faith in the defenders that you've got on the pitch. You could have changed to a back four at that point. You could have brought on Nyonto, you could have brought on Tanaka, you could have brought on Dan James, you could have brought on Metro at halftime. But none of those things happened. And in the opening spells of that game, like before Sunderland scored, apparently we did not have a shot. I genuinely did not realise that. Yeah, I'm on the Opta analyst, and you can.
So, like, as Will was saying, like, you just knew what the pattern was going to be in the second half, and it was actually even worse. We weren't even able to shoot once.
Yeah, we did have a single shot between halftime and the 72nd minute around then.
Home to Sunderland.
And it was clear to everyone watching that the first half hadn't been great. During the first half, we created 0.42 XG from 6 shots. So a lot of that will be in low value. The chances themselves, the highest one was Jaden Bogle's chance, 0.12. And then all the rest were pretty low value ones. Sack's free kick in there, and his other shot, I'm not sure if that was a free kick or open play shot, but there was really nothing being created. So we had to change something, and we didn't. And then the fact that Sunderland were the first team to make subs, this compounds it even more onto why Daniel Farke isn't making those changes. And yeah, the reason why he didn't start the game differently is because he feels he's found a winning formula. Mm-hmm. In his mind, this 11 is his best chance of getting points no matter the opponent, which is ludicrous. Because fair enough, playing the team that he did against Man City, against Chelsea, against Villa, but this is Sunderland, who are without, all due respect, Sunderland, they've had a good season, but they were without 5 players, and we just did not pose them any issues. Like, they had their backup goalkeeper in goal, and we barely managed to test him. and they had Luke O'Nien making his first start at the start of the season. The fact that he won man of the match is absolutely hilarious, considering that it was him who would have given away the penalty if it would have been awarded when he had Strauch.
He also wasn't their best player.
No,
like,
even without the
obviously
penalty, it shouldn't have been him. Yeah.
Alderete.
Yeah,
he
probably
was
Ballard
so
second
good
as well. Like, yeah,
Alderete was like on the end of everything.
Yeah, like in this game, I think we made the second most crosses that we've made in a game, and I'd imagine Alderete.
I know what the other game was. It was Burnley away.
Yes, it was. And I'd imagine Alderete will have been on the end of a lot of those clearances. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I would imagine he was. He was very dominant.
It's not fun to look at the stats of individual players after a match when you've lost 1-0, so I've not looked either. But yeah, he probably did rank well.
Unless you're interested in passes, there was lots of
Pascal Strout, Ethan Ampadu.
Gruev passes, anyone?
Horseshoe,
probably quite a few.
I know you love an Ilya Gruev pass, Will Clay. I know you do.
Those right-footed
lovely left-footed passes. Like gold dust. You never see him. They're too good. That's why he doesn't use his right foot. That's the key.
Right,
really
back on track.
Yeah, I tangented, and that's my apology. But yeah, the fact that he's using the same game plan for Man City and the same starting 11 against they did against Sunderland is a joke, really.
He is first and foremost, and like this is an indisputable fact at this point. Daniel Farke is first and foremost a risk-averse manager. Before he is anything else in the Championship, the way he was risk-averse was to dominate the ball. So the opposition couldn't have it, they couldn't score. That was our main way of doing that. In the Premier League, it's get the big physical profiles. Now that I know it works across the pitch, means we don't concede loads of chances, loads of goals. We haven't, to be fair, have we? We conceded 3 goals in the last 3 games to Villa, Man City, and Sunderland. That's not a problem. Clearly, we're not too bad on that front. But the Sunderland game plan, which we should probably talk about very briefly, because people are obviously knowing that it's a low block. We said it would be a stinky low block, Martin. But why weren't we able to like generate any chances? Why was it so poor? Was it just the fact that they were low blocky, or was there something specific that they were doing to kind of ensure that we were pushed out wide and we were having to cross the ball? Like, what was it for you?
Well, it's all of that. We said in the preview one of the things that they were good at was the off-ball pressure, forcing teams out of their third and to recede and having to recycle possession. They're very good at that. The stats show that. But if you want to break down that kind of low block, which is what we called it, we knew it was going to be that, especially away from home. If it was at Sunderland's ground, then they may have been a little bit more adventurous. But Regis Labrie, as one thing which he's very good at is coaching a low block. And yeah, he's very good at that. And we knew it was coming. Daniel Farke apparently knew it was coming as well. In his post-match press conference, that's what he said, that he was expecting this. So if he was expecting it, why was his main passing threat, with all due respect to him, Brendan Aronson? Why wasn't Willie Gnonto brought in? He's the main attacker who you'd look at in this side and think, if you want someone who's going to be able to pick a pass, make a nice cross, I would put Gnonto on. And I know he's not going to do it, but Notte also can have that sort of guile to create things.
No, he played rubbish against Birmingham. He wouldn't be good enough against Sunderland.
Yes, of course. And yeah. And obviously we are without Okafor. That's a shame, because I think Farke probably would have played Okafor had he been available for this one, and he would have given us a different way of getting by Sunderland's low block. It wouldn't have been through guile, it would have been through sheer directness and direct dribbling, putting that Sunderland's defenders on the back foot, because we don't have anyone else who is a 1v1 when I can speak, dribbling threat. Gnonto isn't direct enough with it. He has his moments where he can do it, but his first option is to pass generally. But Okafor, is very direct, and if he would have been able to start, I think Farke probably would have started him. He trusts him a bit more because he's taller, and he's got really good underlines for the running data, how quick he is. I think Farke likes that. But he trusts Dan James. I would have thought he would anyway. I would have even settled for Dan James to start this one, as giving us something more someone who's a bit more direct. Yeah, he can't take on a man like Okafor can, but he has the pace, he has the acceleration, and he can put in a decent cross. So that would have been fine. We know he trusts him, so why isn't he going for players like that who he trusts? I know he's not played too many minutes recently, but these players aren't going to get in a position where they are match fit unless they actually play decent minutes. Coming on for 10, 15 minutes at a time is not going to do anything to get a player's match sharpness up. If anything, it's worse for it, because then when they're on the pitch, they're forcing the issue and playing to their full level. But I've spoke too much on this. You get my point.
Yeah, like I said earlier, like my hot take, Will, was it's fine if you start the game incorrectly, but you have to fix it as soon as you see that it's wrong. Bielsa famously would make a sub in the first half if he saw something was badly wrong. I'm not saying Farke has to be that, but at halftime, when we were getting funneled wide and we were needing to cross the ball a lot, surely the answer to that is therefore to make sure that you have more options out wide overloads, whether that's a 3-4-3, so you've still got the back three, but you've got wingers, or in a different shape, a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. He could have done that. He could have brought on both James and Gnonto at halftime. Maybe we would have seen a lot more threat. We didn't have a shot to the 72nd minute, as Mr. Martin Riley said. And verbatim, just to remind people, Farke's words post-match were that he admitted he knew Leeds would face a compact side, and that he was expecting this game plan. So why did we then start the game with the same lineup? Should he then, and this is my main question, Will, should he then actually have seen that, well, Okafor's the guy I normally play at home in games. Maybe for this one, I need to play a Gnonto or a James from the start, or bring them on as soon as I can at halftime if it's not going well. Like, answer that one for me.
Yeah, just on Martin's thing, James, since coming back from injury, has been available for 5 games and played 34 minutes. So
Bloody hell.
That's good. In terms of sort of giving
Someone
a player
loved last season.
a player he really, really likes, who has been good for us, who's been injured for a chunky time, 34 minutes in 5 games. Not counting injury time, by the way, because I couldn't be bothered to check. But so call it 45, 50, maybe. That's being generous. That's a terrible way to play someone back into the squad and then throw them on in like a huge moment and be like, right, do something for me now, right? The other point I just wanted to go back on of Aronson being the kind of passing profile. The actual best one in the team we played was Bogle. And I would like to say, I don't think the 3-5-2, 3-5, 3-4-3 even, I don't think it suits Bogle, because I think he's really good combining with a winger coming from deep, and we haven't played to his strengths at all in that. And for not very long, when we brought Gnonto and James on and we had a few bright minutes, he had someone to combine with. But because Farke leaves subs so late, we kind of arrived at a point where we'd had like 5 minutes of that, it hadn't worked, and he did his usual, right, fullbacks, don't need them, and just subbed on more attackers, which completely destroys your structure, right? Which, again, we've said a few times, and it's kind of, I wasn't on the preview, right? But having listened to it, you were both, as you've kind of mentioned, like, it's going to be a low block. He says he saw that it'd be a low block, but also did nothing to kind of respond to that. It's just so incredibly frustrating. And I feel like I've gone on a tangent. So what was the original question, Adam?
No, you've kind of mostly answered it. You're basically saying, like, especially for someone like Bogle, which is kind of what I was trying to allude to earlier, like 3-5-2, he can look fine in it, of course, but like he needs combinations.
Yeah.
And so that's either a 3-4-3, he can still play as a wing back with a winger ahead of him, or it's play a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. And if he wasn't going to do that at half time and change it, why didn't he do it at the start of the game, or vice versa? Why did he not do it at the start of the game and then change it at half time? Doesn't make any sense to me. Okafor, he has been playing and he's gone more attacking with his lineups at home, is basically what I was asking. And yet he didn't drop Okafor out and bring in a James, a Gnonto to play another attacker. He instead played the exact lineup he did against City.
Yeah, I think the other point I was going to make, just to go back on kind of general chat, was you mentioned he's kind of committed to playing the physical profiles, but I'd actually argue he isn't, because If that was the case, Sunderland, for example, BO has to come in. He's the most physical centre back. Longstaff is way more physical than Gruev. There's like
he's playing his favourites.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not put the physical boys in, it's put his mates, or not mates. I don't want to kind of speculate on behind the scenes.
This is what confuses me.
We don't know any of that.
I've not been able to get my head around this because he had Tanaka and James as two of his favourites last season.
Yeah. I don't know. He sort of, as you said, he kind of settles on his lineup and then won't change. It isn't commitment to physical because that isn't as joined up as Beyond and Longstaff coming in. It isn't, I'm at home, I'm going to be attacking, because otherwise we would have gone more attacking than we did the other night. It's, just incredibly frustrating because it's all so opaque that we can kind of see what he's going to do, but there isn't any real reason to it. And there also is kind of limited success to it as well, which is the even more frustrating bit. If I disagreed with what he did and then we won anyway, I'll shut up to some extent because we've won a game and that's brilliant. But we haven't, and we've been saying that, and now it's really hitting home kind of thing.
Yeah, it is frustrating that we didn't score first as well, because I genuinely do think we win comfortably if we do. I think the game plan will look better if we do. But like we've said, that he's just incapable of having a horses for courses approach. Man City, Villa and Chelsea, those kind of opposition, it made some sense to play the way we have. But then this one, compared to those three, is just vastly different things needed, in my opinion. And actually, mine, to give us a pat on the back, at the start of this run of games where we've been playing a back three, you and I both said it's not as much about the back three. It's about how we're using the ball. It's about our shape. It's about how direct we go in moments. And obviously that side of things has improved because we've been a bit more versatile with how we use the ball in build-up. But we also said like we can still do a back four sometimes. And this maybe was a game where we probably should have done that and viewed it as we're playing a more of a championship fixture from last season, and it would have been fine to do it. They had 3 shots all game. This is the last point I want to make here. Like, I think that game ends 0-0 7 times out of 10. Like it wasn't. Neither team really deserved to win. Both were pretty rubbish. They had 3 shots all game. Like 2 of them weren't even really shots. They got the penalty. That's it. They're kind of lying to themselves. They think they weren't lucky here. 2 out of 10 times we probably win it, and the 1 out of 10 times that somehow, like you said earlier, well, you leave yourself open when it's a game like this to just one stupid moment costing you. They managed to get it, and that's why they won. So I didn't think they were lucky, Sunderland, but I'm not annoyed at their game plan, and it does make sense why they came to frustrate and look to do things the way they did. Lots of fouls as well, we haven't even talked about, but lots and lots of fouls. Martin, we'll go over this last bit of this section and then we're done on this bit. But when we have high levels of possession, we've struggled this season. And in this match, we recorded our highest possession in a game so far with 70% of the ball. There have been 5 games this season where we've had 55% or more in terms of possession. And in those games, we've lost 3 to Spurs, to Burnley in this game. And then we've drawn against Sunderland in the reverse fixture. And then we won against Nottingham Forest. So do we have a problem with breaking down low blocks, in your opinion? Is it as simple as that?
Yes, we do, but that's not a uniquely us problem.
Nope. Hardest thing in football.
Yeah, it is the reason why Pep Guardiola has changed so much over the past 3-4 seasons, trying to find different solutions for it, and those solutions sometimes work and sometimes they don't. That's why he has to keep trying new things to try to get it. Sometimes it's about controlling the game and passing beyond it. Sometimes it's about bringing in more dribbling profiles. That's what he's been big on in the past season and a half. But it's not a uniquely us problem. But yes, we do have an issue with that. And it's just not what this team is built for. We don't have many pass-first options. We don't have many good dribblers outside of Noah Okafor. So we're always going to struggle in these sort of things. We even struggled with it sometimes last season in the Championship, but we had the elite players for the division who could overcome it when given enough time, when we are able to camp in the opposition half and regularly break them down eventually, even if it's just winning 1 or 2-0 like was so often we saw last season. So it is an issue that we do have, but it isn't one which really concerns me. Because I just can't see many other teams who are going to do what Sunderland did in this game. Burnley is probably the only one we've got left to play who would do something as stinky as that low block. But yeah, like you said, I admire I understand why they had that game plan. They had lots of players out. They're coming away to Elland Road, night game, which we've been very strong at for a long time. And that it made sense. We have had similar in some away fixtures, usually against the better sides in the league, not against another relegation threatened team like us. But we have done it, but albeit in a different way. Ours was more using physicality and rather than it being as low and as frustrating of a game plan, because their game plan was not just for the low block, it was also to break up the game as much as possible. And that is why there was 12 minutes added time, was it? 12 minutes added time. That was crazy. And that was just built up with the amount of fouls that was given. This was the second most fouls that we've suffered in a game. I think it was 19 off the top of my head. I've got it wrote down somewhere in the run order.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those will come in the second half. I think in the second half they really upped that. Unfortunately, I don't have a time stamp for fouls. That's something which I think really exists. But yeah, there were a lot of those came in the second half, and I think that's why, especially in the opening 20 minutes of that half, why we didn't have a single shot, because the game was so broken up and how little the ball was in play. And I think I'd probably argue that those 12 minutes could easily have been 15 or 16 with the amount of stoppages there were. But that's never going to happen, of course. 12 was long enough as it was.
Just to finish off what you've just been saying, so you're not expecting going forward for any other team other than maybe Burnley at a push Wolves to enact this blueprint in the same way as Sunderland? You don't think that's going to happen in the last 9?
I don't think so. I don't think there'll be many coaches who would look at us and say, even with how successful Sunderland were in this, plus I just don't think there's many who really do it that much. Yeah. There's not many sides who do play a low block. It's mid-block for like 75% of the sides. Yeah. And they're not going to devise a special low block game plan just for little old Leeds.
Little old Leeds. Even with the lights at Elland Road. Yeah, no, I agree. And I hope that's a comfort to listeners listening as well. Just to pick up on one more thing Martin said to finish this section off. Obviously, he said like last season we did face a lot of low block teams. A lot of teams sat in deep, whether that was by their own design or we forced them into a situation just by having a lot of the ball. But it happened a lot, didn't it? So is the fix in the Premier League just to play a back four and wingers to have, as you mentioned at the top of the pod, like combinations, overlaps out wide for people like Jordan Bogle? Or is it not that simple now that the opposition are at a higher level? And if it's not that simple, what's our other solution to finding our way back into games like this?
I think it's absolutely right to recognise we're at a higher level. So just kind of keeping the ball, sustaining pressure won't work as effectively. But equally, it's still the right process, if that makes sense, because the other night, the players we like, if we'd lost against Sunderland 1-0 and we'd missed like 5 sitters and they happened to score on the counter-attack, as happened in the Championship a couple of times, I'd be less annoyed than I am now, having kind of completely failed to set up in a way that might help us against what we knew would be a low block. Fark says he knew would be a low block. I do think in moments like that, you kind of go back to the principles of, just giving yourself more chance by having Bogle in that slightly deeper position. As I've said, you don't need 3 centre-backs to defend against 0.01 XG in the first half and then 0.08 outside of a penalty in the second half. Because, Sunderland, full credit to them, like, set up not to play football, which at times I've wanted us to do a lot more. Like Villa, Everton, when we were winning and the game started going against us, I was absolutely in the group chat going, be more cynical, just kick somebody. I don't care. You're on the back foot. But you're on the back foot, break the game up. It's the obvious thing to do. And they did it. So, we were still unlucky to come out the way we did. But they gave themselves a chance by behaving in the way they did, if that makes sense. Because if they'd come out and played football, they would have lost, definitely. So, fair play. So yeah, sorry. Back to the point. I think we should have set up in a 4 at the back, as we said. Well, as you said, I wasn't there. And yeah, it's just frustrating because as it goes, it might happen, but I just don't think we gave ourselves the chance necessarily to take it in the way that it could have been taken, whether that was with the lineup, as we've discussed, or with subs, as we've discussed. Going around in circles almost.
And for me, like the only other thing to say here is like set pieces. I know they didn't work in this game, but that's your way to kind of get back into a game like this. And we literally did it against Sunderland a year ago, where we were 1-0 down and 2 set pieces were the reason that we won the match. So yes, the shape change could have been a thing here, and I think it should have been a thing. But the other thing is make more of your set pieces. Which brings me on nicely to the player section, because there's a player that should have come on earlier for me that didn't, and I'll talk about him later. But for those set pieces, I think you both know who I'm on about because he made a bit of a difference when he did come on. But let's talk about the impact of some of the players that did come in, because if the shape's not going to change, Martin, I think that the solution has to be like different profiles in those positions. So how impressed were you with Willian Gnonto and how much he took his chance here? Because he was one of the only players that put in a few decent crosses into the box when we needed it.
So yeah, Gnonto impressed me when he came on. He was one of the few players who was really trying to cause problems for Sunderland. He tried to take on his man a few times. It's not something which he's amazing at, but he can do it. And he was more direct than the players who he was replacing. It just gave us that an much needed lift. And like was said before, in the opening of the second half, we didn't have a shot until the 72nd minute, and then I think it's 0.7 of our XG was created between the 72nd minute and when the game ended. Yeah, some of that is game state, but let's be honest, were Sunderland doing anything different after they scored? Same game plan all 90 minutes from them, wasn't it, pretty much? So they weren't doing anything differently, so I don't think you can entirely put that actually down to game state. I think it's down to the profiles that were on the pitch. I also was frustrated when the fullbacks were taken off, as Will was, because it's just not conducive at all to generate good moments. It's always Daniel Farke's preferred go-to. Just whatever attackers he's got on the bench, chuck them on. That's it. That's what he does. And Gnonto should have come on earlier. He should have come on at half-time. Even if it's not at half-time, why not throw him on when he brought on Lucas Mitchell? Just why not do it then? Sunderland still weren't posing us at any issues in that opening 15 minutes, 20 minutes. They also didn't have a shot before their penalty. So it wasn't just us who wasn't doing anything in that time. So in that 55th minute, bringing on another player alongside Mitchell would have made more sense, and Gnonto needs minutes. He's fit, he's available, but he's just not match sharp. And you need to put him on earlier. But I'm sick of talking about a sub-timing with Daniel Farke, so I'll let Will talk about this if he wants to.
Yeah, talk about Gnonto, Will.
Yeah, I'll take it a little bit. So the same, I haven't actually checked in the way that I did for James minutes in terms of what he's played recently. But number one, I agree he should have been brought on earlier. Number two, he was brought on when he was, but because of taking the fullbacks off, it has a kind of what's the word, like down the line impact of, because there's no fullbacks, he is then he's on the pitch, but he's taken away from operating in areas that make sense for him. He's not got a Goodmanson charging on the overlap, maybe coming on an underlap. He's not got like a cohesive structure around him. So yeah, he's on the pitch, but when he's like, rather than playing as a left winger in a 4-2-3-1 where he should have started, or where he should have come on at half time, he's playing as like the only player on the entire left side, because we've got like 3 centre backs, 1 centre mid, and then everyone else up front. It just doesn't platform him particularly well for what he's creative at. And we've kind of said that like he isn't an Okafor, right, I've got the ball, I'm going to do you. But he's really good at like maybe using a Goodmanson run or a Brentford, the cross for Calvert-Lewin, get half a yard, put a ball in the box, but he can't get half a yard if he's abandoned by himself on one side of the pitch. It's just, and I think this is the main thing about, I mentioned already that if we'd set up well and still lost to Sunderland, like, fine, like it happens, right? But it just feels like so much we're not, well, the manager, we don't have an impact. Fark isn't giving the players enough minutes to impact, or even when they do play minutes, like Nonto, giving them kind of the platform that would help them in those limited minutes. So it's kind of a double punishment almost, and then it's a triple punishment because he goes like, right, well, you didn't do anything in the 2 minutes you got in a bad situation, therefore you're not getting a chance next time, rather than kind of recognizing players' strengths and working towards those, if that makes sense.
It does. And just to point out, Martin's helped me do this while you've been talking. He, in the last 8 games, has played in 5 of those games. And in those 5 games, he's played 64 minutes. And that's since the 7th of January. That goes back to, which was Newcastle, where he
that's
played
nearly
1 minute.
2 months, by the way.
I'm not too surprised because the game he came on was Newcastle and we lost. After he came on, 2 goals. In Farker's mind, he's probably to blame.
No,
I totally agree with your point, even though I'm joking that I'm not surprised. Hossie made a really good point.
Can I just, in slightly positive, non-Leeds related news, Palace have just scored.
Fantastic. Mid-recording, this is great.
Yeah.
The people listening to this are going to know whether that actually mattered or not, or if it's actually Spurs managed to turn it around.
Palace have Spurs, yeah?
Yeah. They're at Spurs away.
That's nice.
So please do something.
Hossie made a good point in the Discord about profiles here, and I really, really liked it, so I wanted to include it because he's going to come back soon, but he's just had a couple of tough moments personally going on. So he said, for me in the game, it was clear in the first half that the best moments were coming from Gabriel Goodmanson. You both mentioned Noah Okafor earlier and how good his dribbling and ball carrying, his directness is. Our only other profile that we play a lot at the moment that does that regularly is Gabriel Goodmanson, right? And so when he was driving with the ball at his feet, it was kind of what John likes to describe as destabilizing Sunderland's structure. And we were able to get through them a few times in that kind of area. So naturally, in Hostie's words, we waited to the 25, 30 minutes later at 1-0 down to try bring anyone else on who could do that to disrupt Sunderland's shape. He's bang on. And this is why it frustrated me, not just for Gnonto, it frustrates me for James, it frustrates me for Buonanotte, because I think he's got some capabilities in that respect as well. Like, why is Joel Piroux playing even a single minute of Premier League football at this point in the season? It's an absolute pointless task. I don't really understand it. Yeah, but he doesn't. And Lucas Mecha, honestly, I like the guy a lot, and I do think there's a place for him in the squad and he can play minutes, but he was the wrong sub here as well. So don't know why Parker didn't recognise that.
The other Pirro thing, I don't know if it got put in the Discord from, I forget who tweeted it, so can't credit them. Very sorry. Pirro, on his little heat map, basically just took up positions that Buonanotte is good in, like kind of right wing, kind of attacking midfielder. Like, that's his whole thing. So if we were going to bring someone on to take up those positions, like, it so should have been him. And we didn't even... Oh, Palace got been cancelled.
Wonderful.
Oh, dear. But yeah, like, Pirro kind of taking up the positions he did. Actually, if we'd had Buonanotte in those positions, I feel like he would have knitted it together more, combined more, all of those things. And we didn't even have that option because he wasn't in the squad, which is just genius.
Totally agree. But on Piroux himself, he clearly, you just talked about the fact that players are kind of struggling to take their chance and whatever. He, to me, clearly looked like someone who wanted to impress the manager by taking on some quite stupid shots from stupid positions, or he just got the shot wrong because he was rushing it. Like, he was so desperate to impress, and it was just awful. So that didn't help either. Jamie asked a good question about players, which is basically to say who in the starting lineup, if we're accepting that Farker said earlier after the game, I knew they were going to play like this, who did he actually think that was going to be able to break that team down in the end? Martin, who was his answer to save us there, in your opinion?
Yeah.
And Anton's stat
Now,
free.
obviously, the players who were on the pitch who could potentially have broke it down, Goodmanson, Burgle, that's about it. Our two wing backs. Yeah, you could see maybe Calvert-Lewin with a header, but I don't think we had our best crossers on the pitch either.
Nope.
So if you want to focus on crosses, which is clearly the game plan in this one because we put in a lot of balls into the box, why not have Gnonto and James in from the start if that's going to be your game plan? Just you can do that. You can play these players.
Spurs scored.
Oh, great. Beautiful. Anyway, yeah, those were the only ones I could think of.
Yeah, don't think there is anyone else, to be honest, mine, so I'm not going to ask. Well, let's just talk about the penalty because we've put it off long enough. Obviously, Ampadu is at fault, firstly, but on the actual penalty itself, are we all united that Darlow probably has to be saving that will?
Yeah, it's definitely a penalty. I think after one replay, we were all like, yeah, unfortunately, like game's a game, it is. But also, having seen it, yeah, it's just so, and I'm sure, like, he doesn't need us to tell him. They'll all be aware, but to give away an unfortunate penalty and then be given kind of such a big opportunity to save it, given how bad it was, and to still concede is just so sad. Like, basically.
Yeah, it is, Martin. And also, it was a player that we were obviously heavily linked to in the summer. So that's just drive that nail further into your back, that knife further into your back, should I say. But yeah, it wasn't just that was a big penalty decision that was contentious. I think this brings us on nicely to the referee. We don't do referee talk, as we say much, Martin, but it does feel like in 3 in a row now, we've had someone that's certainly been more leaning towards the opposition than ourselves. I cannot believe I saw Sunderland fans saying that he was more generous to us. That is mental to me when, by far, the biggest moment in the match, he gets wrong, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a penalty. But I don't want to give it too much credence, I'm totally honest, because...
Do you think we win, though, if we score? Because I do, unfortunately. So it is a big moment.
It is what it is. It's definitely a big moment, but we should have had answers outside of...
Yeah, we should.
The referee awarding us a penalty for Luke 9 doing Luke 9 things.
How dare he, though? Think about who he did it to, guys.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, what one of us wouldn't want to get our hands around
moment,
Pascal?
Have you seen the little... He's growing a bit more of a beard, like, further across the He looks fantastic. Tom Woodhead, formerly of this podcast, won't mind me saying this, but he said he's looking particularly handsome tonight when he was in the ground. So there you go. But yeah, he was rubbish, wasn't he? Well, not Pascal Strout, the referee was absolutely terrible. And like, what's the point of VAR, right? I'll let you have your moment with VAR because they had an opportunity to look at it and didn't do anything.
Well, no, but supposedly, 2 things. Supposedly, VAR did look at it, I'd seen, and were like, no, that's all right, mate. Which, like, clearly wasn't. And just number 2 thing on, like, I'm sure you saw my paragraphs in the Discord the other day. I have a big thing about, like, referees aren't bad against your team. They're just bad, right? Yes, we should have had a penalty, but yes, like, on the stroke of half time, Sunderland went to counter-attack, the ref blew his whistle. So I do kind of, like, slightly think, like, they haven't, not that it's as big as being given a penalty, but, like, it wasn't the ref hates Leeds, it wasn't the ref hates Sunderland, it was just they're not great, and football fans will never be happy because everyone is biased, which, like, as they should be. You support a football team, brilliant. Like, if you're not biased, you're doing the game wrong, in my view, as a fan. But I do think it kind of shows why, like, VAR is completely pointless and we should just get rid of it, because we've had how many years of it was introduced and it was, oh, give it a year, it's just teething issues, like, it'll be okay.
Yeah,
it's not okay. And I had this argument as well in the Discord that in the sports where VAR or an equivalent works best, cricket and tennis are the ones I look at. The kind of implication of it, application even, is so much more objective. Like cricket, you're out or you're not. The ball was caught or it wasn't. Football is so subjective that you can look at a replay or a situation and like it's so context based that there isn't actually a black and white line in terms of this is the decision that should be made.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that the best example probably now is the handball rules, where they've said like if the goal scorer touches the ball at all, it's disallowed, which the McAllister one against Forest the other day, he's not even looking at the ball. It hits his back and his arm at the same time, but because it touched his arm a little bit, it's handball. He didn't mean it at all. Whereas Chelsea, Bogle, like, it does hit his arm, definitely, but because he wasn't the one that put the ball in the net, they're like, well, this is the rule now. Even though, like, hey, look, it benefited us, so brilliant, but, like, the overall point is that's handball. It should have been handball, in my personal belief. So the kind of trying to apply objective rules to subjective situations doesn't work, will never work. Get rid. And then at least, like in the Championship, we had, how many goals disallowed for offside that weren't offside?
It was 3 in the Borough game alone, right? So,
but like, yeah, Bamford, they robbed him, man. But like, you can go, you know what? That's terrible, but it wasn't like the decision we wanted. Move on in like 5 seconds, rather than you get promised this perfection that disrupts the whole game and still doesn't arrive. It's pointless. It's rubbish for fans in the ground. It's rubbish for fans watching on telly. It has no benefit because it disrupts the game and it hasn't solved decision making and won't solve decision making. I've turned that into so much of a rant, but it's just
it's probably
so frustrating. And I'd just like to put on the end of that, despite VAR, despite referees, we didn't do enough to win this game of football. So I don't want to make excuses.
No, I don't either. But what you were talking about, subjectivity, it does feel like that 09-1 on Strout was pretty clear, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. No, it was. But like just the overall point
blatant.
is pointless.
And that almost makes it more pointless because you're missing the really obvious ones. So anyway, on the discussion point of performances, we're going to just go over who struggled and who was our man of the match. I guess we have to pick someone, we always do. In terms of who struggled then, Martin, I'm more asking like who in your opinion should really probably be on the chopping block to come out against Palace. And I'm not asking if you're Daniel Farke, I'm asking if you're Martin Riley. Who would you take out now for Palace?
Brandon Aronson.
Me too. Anyone else?
That's about the main one. I don't think there was any individuals in this one who were awful. It's just the team that was put out, the profiles that they are, they couldn't do what they can do individually as players. And they tried to do that to the best of their ability, but because they didn't have the right profiles around them, it made it difficult for the players who were on the pitch to be as effective as what they normally are. Like, this is just, I've just been looking over the stats of this game, and the defensive contributions. Omar Alderete had 23 defensive contributions in this game. 23. Dan Ballard had 16. Enzo Lefebvre had 13. Keep going down. The man of the match, Luke O'Nien, had 4. Sorry, that's a comment, but that's totally not about what the question was at all. But yeah, I don't think there's any really. I just saw it and it made me laugh. But yeah, the players who were on the pitch, I'll rather talk about the players who I thought did well. I thought Anton Stark had a decent game here. Mm-hmm. He also was quite high up in defensive contribution numbers. To say that we had 70% of the ball and he had 13 defensive contributions, which only a few less than Dan Ballard, is pretty impressive, really. Say we only didn't have the ball for 30% of the time. So, yeah, that's really good. He had a good game in that respect. Pascal Strauch did all he humanly could to get the ball forward. He passed the most into the final third, got the ball through to the attackers often, but like we said, the right profiles weren't there to get the job done in that third. So there's only so much Pass can do. So there wasn't anyone who really stunk the place out in this game. And Aronson would maybe be the only one. But this is so the wrong sort of game for Aronson anyway. That's why I don't want to be too critical, because we know he can't be effective against low blocks. That's why I think, is he currently on more goal contributions than he did last season? Or if no, not, he's very close, isn't he?
He's not far off now.
He's not far off, and say that we're playing at a higher level, that speaks to me that Aronson is better when there's space. And he didn't get that very
probably
often.
Better for away games. Not just off the ball, but probably on it as well, like for counter-attacks. Absolutely. There's going to be more opportunities to do that. Yeah.
And his off-the-ball work in this sort of game where we have 70% of the ball is largely pointless. It doesn't gain us anything. When you've got a player like Facundo Buonanotte, who offers you nearly the same defensive output out of possession, but has much more guile and is able to actually take on players and able to destabilise opponents in a good way.
By the way, that's a fact, by the way, for anyone listening, what Martin's just said, it's not something he's just seen with Facundo Buonanotte. His defensive numbers, his pressures, like those are things that he ranks really, really well for, similar to Brendan Aronson. So
yeah. Anyone who hasn't read the article which I put out on him not long after he signed, it stood out immediately, not just from the eye test, but also from the numbers. They were all very good, and he should be at least getting on the bench and getting minutes that way. Farke doesn't want to start. Anyway, that's a separate point altogether to this one. But yeah, there were some players who did do well as much as they could with the difficulties that Sunderland poses and the difficulties that Daniel Farke self-imposed on himself.
I feel like on the topic of redundant players, though, I wouldn't just say it was Brendan Aronson. For me, I didn't like the performance of someone that you particularly not a fan of. Ilya Gurev again.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll just quickly go. I think sometimes in the game,
he had one defensive contribution. Sorry, I just
his positioning often in build-up as well is like it's on the toes of centre backs, and it's like
he hides at left back. He hides at left back.
Yeah, like stop getting near those players. Okay, you can push Goodmanson on when he does that, but it doesn't always work out where we suddenly got Goodmanson in good areas. So like it really feels redundant to me, him being on the pitch in these games. A lot of people have brought up that Forest game, but it feels to me either side of it that he's not been very good. I'm not saying he's been awful by any means, but like he's been below average or average in most games. So you can probably have a bit more fun in that position with a progressive player like Tanaka for a game like this, for example. And then you've also got the side of it that's like, well, Gruev and Aronson have maybe been in this run of games where we've done quite well, but both of them seem to like have come out at the end of this in the last sort of 4 or 5 games and have looked like they've dipped quite a bit. It's certain in Aronson's case that his purple patch of form is over. So to me, I think those are the main two that I could look at and say, maybe we need to think about that, particularly in home games, but also in away games sometimes, whether we need them both in there. So that's where I'm at. Anyone else you would take out for Palace or anything different to me, just quickly?
Kind of as a wider point, Palace have just gone 2-1 up. That wasn't my wider point. But Spurs are now.
Excellent.
Try last.
He loves Leeds,
man. He loves Leeds. Spurs are down to 10 as well. Anyway.
Oh, beautiful.
My overall point, actually, just to like go on a slight sideways, isn't players. It's just the setup is wrong, because even with like players played well or not, right? I actually think of we'll call it 10 outfield players, because I'm not convinced on either goalkeeper, given the evidence of this season. I think Stack was not played in his best position. I think Aronson doesn't suit this kind of game. I think Gruev shouldn't have been playing because Stack should have been a centre mid. I think, as I spoke about, Bogle is better as a fullback coming onto the ball, particularly in games like this where we knew we'd dominate possession. Farke says he knew it'd be a low block. Strauch, good. Rodon, good. Biol should have played instead of Justin, right? So if you commit to the 3 at the back, I think he got the selection wrong. If you play 4 at the back, he didn't do that, and I still don't think he would have picked the players that would have suited it. So I actually don't, as frustrating as yesterday was, because of the fact that you can't even do the like, oh, well, this player should have scored this chance. We just didn't have any chances.
So no, a couple of our best ones, actually, you mentioned Beal. Like I mentioned earlier, like something.
He nearly scored, and he was on for like 2 seconds.
Exactly. He actually had 2 of our best moments, and he wasn't on for very long at all. So like, I don't know why he's not starting for set pieces.
And that's the other thing is like, if we sort of backtrack to committing to, we're going to play 3 at the back, we're going to not concede, right? Fine. But within that, you have to think, okay, if we're reducing our attacking threat, how can we maximize chances elsewhere? Counterattacks. Sunderland aren't barely going to attack, so we're not going to do that. Set pieces. Beal, Chelsea? Brilliant. Scored. Amazing. Palace had, 2 assists for DCL, where he just won the first header, someone mops up the pieces. Beautiful. Yeah. And then, as we saw on Tuesday, like, we were running out of ideas. Beal came on for not very long, and he hit the post with a kind of a point blank, like, not very good chance, but he still hit the post. And then he had a header that, like, again, tiny chance, but he was the only one winning headers. And I think as much as we can say, like, oh, Ampadu long throw, when it's kind of Calvert-Lewin or no one, it becomes a lot easier to defend for opposition teams, right? Because there is one primary threat. In a, again, slight tangent, which I've done a lot of today. But I kind of think the same of like City with Haaland is like it became that Haaland would score or no one. They've brought Semenyo in. If you focus on Haaland, Semenyo will score, as happened against Forest. I know they didn't win in the end, but you add to your threat, right? And that's what we should be doing. If we're not going to commit to the best chance of creating in possession, you have to just think, right, how can we win through the fine margins that the Premier League has gone towards? And we're platforming neither at the moment. Which is, I also think the kind of just launch it in the box towards the end were some of the few moments where we could have got Gnonto on the ball in like a decent position to cross the ball into a box with Calvert-Lewin and Beal and Struijk and Mecha and Rodon. That's a lot of aerial threat if you put a good ball in, and we know that Gnonto can. We know that James can, inconsistently, but he can do it. And we just didn't make the best of any of those situations, which it was sort of, I keep coming back to the point of, if we'd lost playing a way that made sense for us, I'd be annoyed, but I wouldn't be as annoyed as I am now, right? 3-1 Palace. Get in.
Nice way to end that. So then Will, mine's already named 2 of the players that he had like labelled as man of the match. Struijk, Stack. I'm actually the same too, to be fair, Martin. I also want to give Rodon a shout out. I thought he had a really decent game here. To be honest, I think Struijk and Rodon just mopped up everything. I think they were both really excellent. So
it's why it should have been 4 at the back. They could have done it between themselves.
Yeah, I know. But they defended those. Mayenda got nowhere. Like, they defended those channels really well. I thought they both had a really strong game. Struijk was slightly better in possession, which is why I would probably lean to him a little bit more. And yeah, Stack as well. So it's probably between those 2 for me. Will, is there anyone else you want to drop into this mix, or can we all just vote?
No. I think I can't add to what you've said. And the reason that players weren't good isn't because of them, it's because of the overall setup. So I can't add too much.
I'm going to go Struijk, so that means 2 in a row for Struijk, the Man City game in this one. Martin, Struijk or Stack?
Struijk.
Will?
Don't mind. We lost. I'm sad anyway.
Okay, and finally, this is the very last thing to say, which is everyone's probably been waiting for us to ask this question, and we're not going to give this long, but Martin, are we going down?
I don't think so, but I'm not going to commit either way because that's too much like a prediction. But
you put this question in.
I know it. Exactly, so I could say those words. But yeah, also, if you're judging us going down off this one game, were you not expecting us to lose? for the rest of this season, or is it just that it's Sunderland who did it? It's causing you to
I
have
think it's
this
where it's come.
bed wet. Yeah, there's that too. I'm not going to deny that this was a disappointing match, but the reason why I'm still hopeful that we can stay up is there's still 3 teams between us and relegation. For us to go down, all 3 of those sides have to pick up more points than we do for the rest of the season. I could see that with one side. I can maybe see it with 2.
Yeah.
Maybe 2. But 3 sides all doing that, reversing all of their forms. West Ham are probably the one who could definitely end up above us because they seem to have turned the corner. Forest, I'm not convinced on because, yeah. But
Spurs are 3-1 down to Palace at home.
Evidently have got massive issues of their own, despite how many talented players they've got. Yeah, it does not seem like Igor Tudor is the one. So we should still have hope that we can still stay up here. And if we do pick up less points than the other 3 sides below us, then fair play, we deserve to go down. That's all I'll say. But we've still got a lot to be hopeful about, and don't think that this is the be-all and end-all of us and that we're down now because we've lost this game. There's still another, 8 games left for us to play?
Yeah, and there's going to be a game week where it kind of spins the other way and we have a decent week, maybe doing more than we expected, and the other teams around us all lose. It will not be like this every single week where they all pick up points on us, apart from Spurs, apparently. No. I'm the same as you. And
thank a lot for Spurs. Sorry.
I'll ask this to Will in a sec, but I'll just give my answer quickly, which is the exact same as you, Martin, in the sense that I feel like our ceiling probably is 15th now because there's a huge gap to Palace and above. So we're not going to catch any of those sides. But I don't think our floor is as low as 18th still, even though a lot of fans will, because I'm in agreement with Martin that I don't think all 3 of the teams below us will get above us. And no one should be mentioning Burnley or Wolves, and I will shoot anyone that does. So I personally think we will finish 15th, 16th, or 17th, and that is staying in the Premier League. Are you the same, Will?
Yeah, the 3 teams below us, rather than a straight shootout, gives me hope. The fact, yeah, I can only look. It's a lot less comfortable than it has been for a while, but given the choice of Leeds, Spurs, Forest, West Ham, I'd rather be in our position. Right, Spurs have got a new manager in, and their new manager bounce has been 0 from 9 points. Unless they do something remarkable in this second half. So, yeah, it's 9 games to go. We're only 3 points ahead. Like it's never going to be we're fine. But I still, I'm not. I haven't had a single moment this season where I've hit the kind of Palace home game of when Garcia was in charge, and it's like, actually, there is nothing we can do. And whilst we don't quite feel inevitable, I'll still cling on to some hope, right? Because I think that's kind of where Spurs are, particularly at the moment. Doesn't matter what they do, nothing's going right. They still have better players than us, but once you get on that runaway train, it only goes one way.
Yeah. And just because we've lost to Sunderland doesn't mean we're going to suddenly lose to loads of other teams in this mix.
No,
and like our fixtures on paper are still nicer, and I would still rather have them because they're teams that are losing lots of games that are weaker in terms of their personnel. I would rather play those teams because, as Martin said earlier, and this is a final point on this, like there are not really going to be many other teams that tried to play the way Sunderland did against us. So other games should be more open. For example, Palace and Brentford coming up, I can't see being like that in the exact same way. So it should be a lot better for us in those games. Right, this has been a bit longer than usual, but I think it's probably all right because of the nature of the fixture. But there won't be as long as this afterwards because we've already committed to doing shorter pods. But we will end it here. So again, a reminder, if you want to get extra content, which is going to be on our Patreon, it's patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Please, it really helps us out. It will be massive for us. But that's all we have time for tonight. We'll be back to preview the Palace game and talk a little bit about Norwich in that instance as well next week. And then it's Brentford. I think everything's pretty normal for us now, unless we go on an FA Cup run. Most fixtures are pretty good, so in terms of how they fall, so that's good. But all that is left for me to say is thank you very much to Martin.
Thank you as well, mate.
And thank you, Will, for being here, because it's nice to have a different voice for once.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you both. It's been good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your long answer at the end there, actually, even though we were pressed for time. It was good. It was really good. Thank you. Thank you, dear listeners, as well. We'll see you soon. So goodbye.